Hi, I'm Hensi, and I'm here with Gio from CBI Bank. So, Gio, your position.
What do I do?
Yes, your position at CBI.
So I'm the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer for the bank.
Yes,
that
you
sounds
are.
like a mouthful. And I also head our ventures arm. Right, so we do a little bit of corporate VC, and that's also something I look after.
Geez, two different departments and big departments as well. Like those.
Well, they're
are
actually really small,
very-
but we're doing big things.
Yes, exactly. Important, very important things. So look, I am a huge advocate for CBI. We've had an amazing.
Whoa, let's say that in the camera.
Yes.
Well, here we go.
Here's one for the seats in the back. So let me explain the situation. So we work a lot with Rakdao, and so we've incorporated a bunch of companies there, and CBI, which Gio can go into more detail about. They are a banking. I'll let him explain. But that's how we knew about CBI and got working with CBI for our clients and through our clients. And everybody that has worked with you guys has had such a positive experience. And I did a bank account personally. Bank account recently, and the experience phenomenal. CBI phenomenal.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, and that's
we're-
not a
we're-
paid advertisement.
And we're gonna get you that personal bank account.
Put me as like on the promotion.
On the promotional, yeah, we can discuss it at some point. But then, so yeah, look.
Yeah,
So
please,
if
go
you look
into
at,
Rakdao.
let's talk about Rakdao, right? And so, let's take a step back. So, we're as a bank, we were actually incorporated in Ras Al Khaimah. We're very close to Ras Al Khaimah. We care about Ras Al Khaimah. Our board members, our CEO Ali Rakat, is very much of the opinion that we want to do everything we can to stimulate economic development in Ras Al Khaimah and support His Highness Sheikh Saud with his vision for the Emirates. And so, when they started talking about Rakdao, and given that, in our bank we have a couple of people, and myself included, that have some experience at a personal level in Web3, I think very early we kind of supported them and kind of helped them wherever we could. We think Dr. Samir and his team are doing an amazing job. And one of the things that most of the companies face, I would say, in the region, whether it's fintechs or Web3, is access to banking services, right? It's very, very complicated. And so the way we tackled it is we formed a strategic partnership with Rakdao, where the compliance teams, ours and theirs, have basically aligned. And so what that does is we know that if someone is going to be licensed to Rakdao, they already meet all of the regulatory requirements that we would need from a compliance perspective, which makes it significantly easier for Dutch companies, like the ones that you're working with, to then be able to get a bank account for us. So the whole point was, how can we make it easier for innovation-focused companies to come in the region or to set up in the region and to get to market quickly, right? Without having to worry about things like getting a bank account. And on top of that, we're really bullish about innovation, the vision of the country, the vision of the Emirates. And so anything we can do to support that, we're very happy to do.
So I know you guys, and later on in this podcast we'll get to the investment arm. But how are you, like, with all the other banks blocking even a transaction that even mentions virtual assets? How are you guys able to do it?
That's a complicated question, and I think the first thing is, to be fair to all the other banks, there is a reason why things are complicated, and it's not necessarily always the fault of the bank. But I also think there's a component of lack of understanding of what Web3 really is, right? And Web3 in the broadest sense, which is more than just crypto. I think ultimately, as a bank, over the last years, compliance has become increasingly important for many different reasons, valid reasons. And so, how do you ensure that you can be fully compliant when you touch things like digital virtual assets, including crypto? And so I think that's usually where it's very difficult, and because of that, very many banks probably don't really want to do it because it carries a lot of risk without necessarily seeing or understanding the potential upside.
Right.
I think what we're trying to do as a bank, at the very least, is trying to figure out what are the use cases of some of these technologies, because the world is changing. Whether we like it or not, the world is going to change. It's already changed. It's changing rapidly. My kind of like go-to motto has always been, you can't expand on what you don't understand, right? And so understanding the needs of the customers of the future, you need to be part of shaping that future. So find use cases, figure out how the ecosystem works, understand how the flows work, identify where the risk points are and the problem points, and then build provisions and mitigations to manage that. But I think it's inevitable. My personal view is DeFi, TradFi, Web2, Web3, they're going to merge at some point. I don't know if there's going to be a dominant one on either side, but the ultimate winner will be a combination of the two, best of both worlds.
And that's where the strategy side of your job comes in, right? So Do you guys just facilitate the opening of a bank account for a virtual asset related company, and is that only fiat, or do you have other like virtual asset components that can come into it?
For the time being, it's only facilitating like core banking services for these kind of companies. I think us and everyone else is very closely keeping an eye out on what else that we could be doing. And there's a lot of use cases, right? You have client money accounts, which exchanges need and most companies need. You can start thinking about custodial services, effectively providing wallets to people where they can buy, sell, and hold and trade crypto. You can start using stable coins for remittances, right, or settlement. And so there's a variety of things we could be doing. I think the key question really is, what is it that we should be doing? What do our customers both want and what do they need today? And what can we do as a bank today? Because a lot of it typically depends on your maturity in understanding this, but also the infrastructure that you have as a bank to action on this, which is frankly not always easy.
No, I agree with you. Jumping back to the previous question, why do you think they'll merge?
Because they have to. Because the traditional financial system hasn't really evolved that much. It has, but not to that point. And I think what you see now is almost a shadow economic system being built through decentralized finance, right, DeFi, on multiple different chains. And I think what you look at is that if you see the protocols, forget the crypto part of it. If you look at the protocols and the infrastructure that people have built, decentralized, there are definitely lessons there that traditional finance can take and improve what we're doing. And I think what you're looking at now, like Visa recently announced that they're doing a partnership with Solana, right, which is a blockchain, well known for its speed and transaction output. Stripe recently announced that they're going to do something with Solana. Or was it Ripple? I forgot. It's either one. It's one of the two. I think it's actually Solana, but I'm a Solana maxi a little bit. But so I think you start seeing that people are looking at, okay, so what are some of the things that make sense that we can then leverage? Now, there are going to be people in DeFi that will never ever want to go back to TradFi, and there's going to be people in TradFi who don't ever want to go to DeFi and honestly should never ever ever go to DeFi. But I do think that you want to look at any new technology and kind of figure out how can we use that and make it better. My personal opinion is onboarding of the masses, which is the big goal, right, is not going to come from DeFi. It's going to come through TradFi embracing DeFi.
So how are you guys with the regulations, the regulatory environment at the moment? How are you guys going to integrate that in your business?
Well, I think one of the things that we love about Dubai, or I shouldn't say Dubai, one of the things we love about the UAE specifically, because you obviously have ADGM, you have VARA, you have Ragdow. I think the progressiveness of the government and in turn pushing them, or the government pushing out regulations to these regulators, and this practical approach that they're taking, I think is amazing. It's not something I've seen in many geographies. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that's not just an opinion. You can see that by the number of startups, crypto firms established, new or established, who are all coming to this market. So I think the regulatory environment is absolutely great. I think the central bank over the last year has done a lot of great work in kind of enabling banks to now also participate in that. So I would say everything is there, right? You have this vision from the government, you have a private sector that's coming up to terms, and you have a very progressive hands-on regulator. That's all you really need, right, to kind of push this ecosystem forward and drive adoption.
I'm really glad that you guys ended up partnering with Ragdow, because I agree with you. Dr. Samir, I have so much respect for him. And he's done so many great things with RAC ICC and now with Ragdow. Everything I'm hearing about Ragdow is good. We've had experiences, phenomenal. CBI, actually, this in and of itself, being able to set up a company and then open a bank account, this doesn't exist at the moment, not that I'm aware of anywhere else, right? Yes, you can open a bank account once you have your trade license, but it's usually not linked to the free zone in the way that Ragdow has linked it to you guys. But then let's talk a little bit about this investment arm that you had mentioned previously. So explain a little bit more about what's going on there.
Well, look, we believe that, we believe in partnership-driven innovation, right? And so there's a lot of things that as a bank, I think most banks will not traditionally very good at. And then you have a lot of fintechs, as an example, that are just much better at product development for certain segments. They have much faster time to market. Their tech stack is usually a little bit better. And so we believe that instead of for us reinventing the wheel, why don't we partner with some of these companies that can do these capabilities for us, right? And then ultimately our clients win, right? Everyone wins. Once you start doing these partnerships, whether it's AI or holographics, we did something pretty crazy in GITEX last year with holographics.
Really?
Yeah, actually right now in our Dubai Mall branch, we're going to do a big launch, but in our Dubai Mall branch, you can go there today and we have this like virtual avatar that's powered by AI and you know, something we wanted to kind of show a glimpse of what the future of banking could look like. And that's often what we do, like do these experiments to try to figure out how would that work, how does the tech actually work, how does it not work, what are the limitations, and then figure out what kind of products can we build around that. So we're doing a lot of use cases to make sure that once we do launch something, we actually practice and we have the experience to operate it. Now back to the question around the investments, I think when you partner with startups and you get a close look on the founding team and the product, particularly when it's a product that you're now, you know, delivering to the market either as a partnership, white label, whatever that may be, you very quickly start looking at, well, why would we not also then invest in some of these companies, right? It makes a lot of sense. I'm either creating a market for you or helping you create a product, or at the very least, I really believe in you and in the founding team that this is a great product. And so that's how that kind of came about, and we started looking at some of these partners to say, okay, well maybe is it worth for us participating in some of the rounds?
That's so interesting because you guys are taking such an innovative approach, and I agree with this. Like I always say to our team as well, if we're going to be in the space, we need to be adopting this technology. So even we created just like a test token, right? It's called I love lawyers, ILL. But you know where, like, you know, if you're in the space and you believe in it, then you should be doing more in it, right? Not just like staying in your box.
I personally think like this is the number one thing that I think is important for any banker. Any of you bankers that want to do this kind of stuff. If you don't have your own crypto wallet, and I'm not talking about an exchange custodial wallet, I'm talking about a non-custodial wallet. If you haven't transacted, bought an NFT, whatever that may be, go as crazy and buy a punk or buy just like a super cheap, you know, something on Base if you want to, right? Coinbase is layer 2. Whatever it is, but do that. Go through the entire like life cycle of how that works. Understand the technology, understand the communities. Maybe hop on a Discord, understand how that works, what a DAO is and why it works, or more importantly, why sometimes it really doesn't work.
Exactly.
But I think if you're not in the middle of it, it's really hard for you to understand where the technology is going to take you and where you can still play. My view on this, back to the question you asked earlier, right? TradFi, DeFi. I think there will always be a value for a trusted, credible brand, e.g. a bank, that is managing your store value.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And so for some people, I mean, I know quite a few people will be like, oh no, I do that in Bitcoin myself and they will not trust banks, and that's great. But that's a handful of people ultimately, I think. The majority of people, my parents, I would never want them to manage that like that. I would prefer for them to be able to go to a bank that they have all their other savings with, and that makes it easier for them if you forget your password or God forbid your keys. You know what I mean? Like, so I think a bank will have a big role to play, but it will just be a fundamentally different role than the role we play today.
But isn't it strange that a bank, like I'm just thinking about what the cap table would look like, right? So you invest in a project, like would it, I mean, I love the idea of it, don't get me wrong, like if we had a bank investing in us, that'd be pretty cool, right? But isn't it strange to have a bank invest and then a bank to be on the cap table?
Well, let me ask a different question, right? Isn't it amazing to have a bank on your cap table?
Of course, I'm saying I would love it, but I mean, I haven't seen it before.
I think, well, look, to be fair, like it's definitely something that we invented. Like I think there's a couple of them, but there's two that I would probably want to name right now that have been doing really great work in this space. JP Morgan is doing amazing stuff. In general, innovation on AI and investments and everything else. And, you know, you can Google them and see what they've bought. But I think also SC Ventures, which kind of came from Standard Chartered, I think it's a great approach where a corporate VC as a bank is investing in either core or core adjacent, or, you know, someone earlier today told me something around creating optionality for the bank, and I thought it was a really great way of looking at it, which is, again, there's things being developed now that if you wanted to invest time and effort in that as a bank, it wouldn't necessarily make sense, right? You don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the capacity, it's not your core. So why would you not just invest in some of these companies so you can still see up close what's happening and also participate in the upside without having to do the work yourself? So I think the model makes sense. I think for startups, having a bank gives a lot of legitimacy.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
It does.
And on top of that, again, back to the earliest part of our conversation, one of the biggest problems that funds and startups have is access to banking services.
Yeah.
Having a bank on your cap table immediately solves that problem for you, right? That's
No,
a win-win.
true. No, honestly, like it's true. So even if you had a project that was challenging the banks, the way that you would do it is to put like someone from the central bank or whatever onto your capital. In the UAE, these things are possible. In Europe, it wouldn't be, right? But so Do you guys have a separate fund that you're investing through, or is it actually the bank?
Yeah, no. So we don't have a fund. We don't operate a fund, and it's literally the bank, right?
Okay.
It's the bank, and we are investing in partners right now that we already are going live with or are live with. So we've observed these companies, we observe their products, we believe in the product, we're a client or a customer of the product. We know the founder, really, really important for us, right? We've seen the founder, we believe in their vision. Because ultimately, one thing that we learned very quickly is an idea is only as good as the founder's ability to execute that idea, right?
Yes.
And so
Team is so important.
team is super important. And so, so we don't have a fund as such. We don't have deploy pressure or anything else.
Yeah.
We're just a bank that every now and then when we see something that makes sense, that is kind of adjacent or core to what we're doing, and we're already partnering, we now have an opportunity to potentially also invest.
So Gio, as our last question,
Yeah.
where do you see, like you guys are like almost like a bank on steroids. Where do you see the banking going? Or alternatively, what do you think other banks need to do to kind of catch up? Add some knowledge to the market.
Experiment. That's really what I keep telling people. Just experiment, right? Like, again, you cannot expand on what you don't understand. Build a level of understanding of what the technology is, what it does, and also what it doesn't. Because the problem is if you don't, and even if you go for a vendor approach, you won't know. You won't be able to validate what they tell you, whether that's reasonable or not, if there's a business case or not.
Yeah.
Understand the ecosystem, understand the flow of things, and then based on that, form an opinion on what you could do as a bank today and also tomorrow, because tomorrow will be fundamentally different than what it is today. If you think about it, the rate at which processing chips have evolved, if you look at it right now with NVIDIA, right, what they're doing for AI, that's a massive pivot. I don't think anyone predicted that 3 years ago.
Yep.
And so my view is we don't know what the future is going to look like,
True.
but the only way to get a little bit of a head start on this is by help shaping it.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're trying to do. Figure out use cases and stay close to that.
I love it.
One-
Gio, thank you so much.